Public polling by Gravis Marketing at the start of the year showed Saccone with a 12-point lead, but internal polls show the race much closer, in the single digits. In a low-turnout special election, in an environment where Democratic statehouse candidates in ruby-red districts across the country are improving on their party's 2016 performance by 15 to 27 points, a Democratic victory here no longer looks impossible, even if the odds remain against it. But if Lamb has a shot in this race, any shot at all, it will be because of an uprising in the district that began long before his candidacy. Since the 2016 election, a grassroots rebellion has been upending politics as usual in southwestern Pennsylvania and across the state, driven in large measure by suburban middle-aged women. If a Democratic wave carries Lamb into office in the March 13 election, it will be one that has been building, drop by drop, since the day Trump was elected. The story of the fight by Democrats to retake the 18th congressional district doesn't start with Murphy's resignation on October 21, or even with the revelations over the summer that he'd had an affair. After Trump was elected, though, it was clear that wouldn't be good enough anymore. As it did for women in communities across the country, the Women's March had two powerful effects on her. It created a sense of solidarity and momentum when she was looking for a way to express her despondency over the election outcome, and it suggested concrete steps for action that took her life in a surprising new direction. "We came off the march and we were like, let's go, let's go, let's go," said Huber, who lives in Castle Shannon. "And we all started creating these little groups." Other women in the South Hills were following similar paths, using step-by-step instructions sent by older national groups such as and new insurgent ones like Indivisible, along with emails from the Women's March organization based in New York City. Lynn Hughes, 34, a registered independent until Trump's win radicalized her, tells a similar story. Before the inauguration, called for community meetings all across the country to resist Trump at a local level. "I was like, I have a house, I can just host a meeting," she said after a meeting at a Panera in Mount Lebanon co-hosted by 412 Resistance and the group she founded in mid-January, Mount Lebanon Rise Up. "I never intended to be any kind of organizer really." In the group's early days, Hughes followed the community meeting agenda instructions, which suggested forming committees. Then those took on a life of their own. The biggest ones focused on gerrymandering. Pennsylvania is one of the most heavily gerrymandered states in the country and planning for the midterm elections. The goal from the start was to create enough momentum in the district to attract a strong Democratic challenger to Murphy, and provide a deep network of grassroots volunteers, and maybe even money, for that eventual candidate's campaign to rely on. They got their chance sooner than expected. It came about 8 months earlier than we had planned. "But we were ready," said Valerie Fleischer, 40, a mother of 2 and member of 412 Resistance who has since the election begun to consider running for office herself and is now taking a training class for would-be women candidates by Emerge America. Another Mount Lebanon Rise Up committee spun off into a group called Mondays with Murphy, targeting Murphy's field offices around the district with vivid, boisterous, and sometimes musical protests every Monday that eroded support for him in the district even before his affair went from local rumor to national news. Further flexing their muscle, members of the resistance groups had also been working to become Democratic committee members so they could attend the more than 500-person convention to select the party's nominee. They succeeded in winning a small number of slots that allowed them to be in the room where the decision was made. Lamb led 6 other candidates on the first round of balloting and won overwhelmingly over Sarah on the second round. "We were ready to make it competitive in the general election. The fact that a shameful resignation that he had to leave office in shame only sweetened the deal," said Fleischer. Pennsylvania's 18th district stretches from the gritty working-class suburbs south of Steel City through a stretch of Tony communities full of standalone homes where regional CEOs and business leaders reside, continuing south and west through coal mining communities and rural areas whose rolling hills are indistinguishable from those across the district's southern and western borders with West Virginia. The residents are more than 90% white and substantially more suburban than rural. Activists groups in each of those counties are now doing grassroots volunteer organizing for Lamb, even in the GOP stronghold of Westmoreland County, where Voice of Westmoreland has grown from a lone man holding a banner outside the courthouse a year ago to a group of more than 200. Angela Aldis, 37, a hospice nurse by day, is one of the lead organizers of Voice of Westmoreland, an issues-based organization that started early last spring when 6 people who had met protesting outside Murphy's district office and the local courthouse against Trump's refugee ban decided to build something more pragmatic and less sporadic. "None of us knew what we were doing," she said. "So we did that training through Harvard, the Resistance School, an independent training project created by students at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government in the spring of 2017. The digital training tools national groups were providing became a huge part of their life. They did Movian's Resistance Summer online trainings as well. I don't know how many teleconferences we've been on," Aldis said. She's also been listening in on conference calls from a local health policy group, and did a Sierra Club Lobby Day training. Though formally nonpartisan, the group finds its members casting their lot with Lamb, because Saccone did not answer the group's policy position questionnaire and Lamb provided detailed answers. "It really will be local people talking to each other that will make the difference in the special election," said Hannah Lorison, a Philadelphia-based leader of Pennsylvania Together and a force behind Tuesdays with Toomey, which has been targeting Senator Pat Toomey's district offices with weekly protests since the winter of 2017. "The left is energized and organized in a way it hasn't previously been, and that makes races competitive. And even if they lose then, every new Democrat they turn out and mobilize, every person who moves from a passive to an active participant in the process is one more person who can achieve one of their other long-term goals, rebuilding the Democratic firewall in Pennsylvania in time for 2020.